Give it back. That food is trash." People laughed as the little girl stood still, her hands shaking around a paper bag that smelled of warm bread and soup. The man who said it did not know her name. He did not know her hunger. And he did not know that someone was watching from across the street. Someone who had learned long ago that silence could be louder than any shout. The watching man was tall, dressed plain, his shoulders held with a discipline that never left him. His eyes were tired, the kind that had seen too much and learned to stay calm anyway. To the city, he was just another rich man leaving a fine restaurant. To the world, he was a millionaire. To himself, he was still the same quiet soldier who once learned how fragile life could be. The girl lowered her head and whispered something soft. She did not argue. She did not cry. She only nodded and turned away, holding the bag tighter as she walked down the street. The crowd lost interest. The laughter faded. But the man did not move. Something deep in his chest tightened, a feeling he knew well. It was the same feeling he had when he watched people look away from pain because it was easier than seeing it. He had noticed her before. Every evening at the same time, she appeared behind the restaurant. Small, thin, always careful. She waited until the doors closed, until the lights dimmed. Then she picked up what others had left behind. Not stealing. Never stealing. Only what was offered, what was thrown away. He had told himself it was none of his business. He had told himself that the city was full of stories he could not fix. But tonight, after hearing that voice call her food trash, something inside him refused to stay quiet. He waited. He watched. And when she walked away, he followed. The city smelled of rain and warm pavement. The girl moved fast, her shoes worn thin, her steps practiced. She did not look back. She never looked back. The man kept his distance, blending into the evening crowd. His heart heavy with questions he did not yet have the courage to answer. Long before he was a man with money, he had been a man with orders. He remembered the heat of faraway roads, the weight of a pack cutting into his shoulders, the smell of dust and metal. He remembered nights where hunger was a small thing compared to fear. He remembered sharing one meal between many, breaking bread with hands that shook from more than cold. He remembered a friend who always gave away his portion first. A friend who said that if one child slept hungry, none of them deserved to sleep full. That friend never came home. That friend's face had followed him into every success, every quiet victory, every lonely night after the war. The man built his life with discipline and silence. He started small. A single investment. A single risk. He worked while others slept, not because he loved money, but because work kept his mind from drifting back to the faces he could not save. Success came slowly, then all at once. Buildings, companies, numbers that stopped feeling real. But no matter how high he climbed, he never stopped seeing the people at street level. He never stopped noticing the ones who waited in shadows. The girl turned into an alley, and then into a narrow street lined with old houses. Paint peeled from the walls. Windows were cracked or covered. She stopped in front of one door and knocked twice, soft and careful. When it opened, warm light spilled out. The man saw something that made his breath catch. Inside, there were more children. 3 of them. All younger than her, all watching the bag in her hands with wide eyes. She smiled then, a smile so gentle it hurt to see. She knelt and opened the bag, pulling out the food she had been shamed for taking. She divided it without hesitation, making sure everyone had something before she took a single bite. The man felt something break open inside him. He stayed hidden, his heart pounding as he watched her hand the last piece to the smallest child. She ate only after they did. When she finally took a bite, it was slow, grateful, almost careful not to want too much. This was the shocking truth. She was not feeding herself. She was feeding a family. The man leaned against the cold wall, memories rushing in like a tide. He saw his fallen friend again. He heard his voice. If one child sleeps hungry, the next evening he came back. And the next. He watched her routine. He watched how she thanked the restaurant staff when they allowed her leftovers. He watched how she never complained when they did not. He watched how people walked past her without seeing her at all. One night, a manager shouted at her to leave. Rules were rules. She bowed her head and left without a word. No one defended her. No one spoke. The man felt the familiar burn of injustice, the kind that thrived in silence, so he stayed silent too. But not still. He made calls. Quiet ones. He listened more than he spoke. He learned her name. He learned her story. Her mother was sick, too weak to work. Her father had died years ago. The girl had become everything at once. Sister, provider, protector. The city had rules. The city always had rules. But rules without care were just another way to turn away. The tension grew when one evening, the restaurant put up a sign. No leftovers given. The girl stood there longer than usual that night. She waited even after the lights went out. When she finally walked away, her shoulders sagged, and the bag in her hands was empty. The man followed again. This time, the house was darker. The children were quieter. The girl tried to smile, but it did not reach her eyes. She told them stories instead of sharing food. Stories about better days, about places they would go someday. The man felt his silence reach its limit. The next morning, the restaurant received a letter. So did the city office. So did the neighborhood. It was not loud. It did not accuse. It simply asked a question. What kind of place throws away food while children go hungry? The answer came not in words, but in actions. A week later, the restaurant reopened under new ownership. The sign was gone. In its place was a simple message about dignity and care. The staff changed too. Smiles replaced shouts. Leftovers were no longer trash. They were meals. On opening night, the girl stood at the door, unsure. The man stood behind her, not touching, not rushing. When she looked back, he met her eyes and nodded once. Inside, the warmth felt different. The air smelled of bread and hope. The manager handed her a bag, fuller than she had ever carried. He did not make a show of it. He simply said that everyone deserves to eat. She whispered thank you, tears filling her eyes. Word spread. People came. Donations arrived. A quiet network formed, one that did not need applause. The house with peeling paint slowly changed. The lights stayed on longer. Laughter returned. The power shift was complete, not through anger, but through honor. One evening, the man finally spoke to her, kneeling to her level. He told her that strength was not loud, that feeding others when you have nothing left was the bravest thing a person could do. He told her that some heroes never wear uniforms, but they save lives all the same. She listened, her face serious. Then she nodded, as if she had known it all along. The crowd that once laughed now stood in quiet respect. People who had looked away now lined up to help. The city did not change overnight, but one corner of it did. And sometimes, that was enough. In the end, the man returned to his life, his work, his silence. But he carried something new with him. A reminder that real wealth was measured in meals, shared and dignity restored. And the girl kept walking each day. Her steps a little lighter, her bag a little fuller, her future no longer invisible. The story left behind a simple truth. Silence can be power. Kindness can be justice. And the smallest hands can hold the biggest hearts. If this story moved you, share where you are watching from. Tell us what quiet heroes you have seen in your life. And subscribe for more stories that honor the strength we too often overlook.